How you doing, everybody? Welcome back to Staying Focused for Jesus. The craziest story never told. I want to give you a story. I want to tell you a story. And it's going to sound crazy. But when you start to put the pieces together that don't seemingly fit, it makes you stroke your beard or makes you scratch your head. It makes you wonder some things. So let me tell you this story. Many people don't realize that there were different things going on with the 9/11 event. For one, you know about the talks about our government being involved in it, which it was. But there were some things going on that is deeper than what we currently know. What if I told you that 9/11 was supposed to be used to bring in the New World Order? You probably say, well, I've heard that before. You probably say, I don't know about all that, man. That's crazy talk. Bear with me. What if there was also some other things going on with it, with 9/11, the 9/11 event possibly being used to bring in the New World Order, but also to do some other things? So you got all these different wheels moving, all these different angles of things happening. One person having one purpose, another person having another purpose, when the outcome they were trying to achieve on a deeper spiritual level was the same. Now what you have is, you have what they call the cabal, who stole the gold that was in the World Trade Center. There was gold under there. And they used the gold, they used the 9/11 attack to cover it up as an excuse to get that gold out of there. Now you may be asking, well, where did the gold come from? Well, we know that America has gold. The whole country and the whole world has gold, different gold reserves. But America got this gold from what is called the Chinese dragon family. Now you probably say, man, come on, Brother King, the Chinese dragon family? You got to do your research. As they say, truth is stranger than fiction. Oh, yes, it is. There's a Chinese dragon family, and some of you are familiar with that. You can go through history and confirm this. I forgot the name of it. It's some gold that they had found. And when they went to war or something like that. And it was this whole story about this gold and this, what happened to the gold and where the gold and stuff is at. I have to look it up and drop it in another video. But if you watch my NESARA videos, then you probably know what I'm talking about. Or if you've done this research, then you know what I'm referring to. So America got this gold, brought this gold from the Chinese dragon family. But America never paid the gold back. The Chinese dragon family, they claim to be direct descendants of the dragon. Now you maybe say, oh, come on, direct descendants of the dragon? Well, you got to look at it from a biblical standpoint. What does the Bible teach us about tares? And who sold them? It says that the enemy, Satan, sowed the tares among the wheat. Well, if Jesus planted us in his flesh, then that means that Satan somehow, I don't understand how he's able to do it. He planted his people here in the flesh who are really tares. See, the Bible has a lot of deep stuff that people that either aren't ready for or they reject it. Because the scriptures clearly say that Satan, the enemy, planted the tares among the wheat. And then it says what? Let them grow up together. You know why? Because wheat and tares, they look exactly the same. So you may be saying, well, what differentiates wheat from tares? How can you tell the difference? When you start to thresh them and you break them open, the inside is what makes the difference. Because tares, you go look this up, and I've mentioned this before. Tares on the inside, when you break them up, they're black. You think that Jesus gave that parable, which is really truth, for no reason? They look exactly the same. Flesh, but it's the inside. Inside they are black. They are literal devils in the flesh. You have literal devils walking around this world, living their lives. They're doctors, they're lawyers, they're all these different positions. They may even be your next door neighbor. They know who you are. But for the most part, people don't know who they are. Which is why you have to be able to discern spiritually. So this Chinese dragon family that's claiming to be direct descendants of the dragon is biblical. They just happen to put it out there. But because majority of Christians, they allow themselves to be confounded or kept in this box of what their own mentality and brain can think, they can't see further. They can't fathom these things. They can't fathom the human DNA being manipulated. They can't fathom giants. They can't fathom spiritual entities walking among us, but not really being mankind. Serious stuff. So, what they call the cabal, they call them the cabal, which they're really a part of the same team. The people who are with the Chinese dragon family, that money, that gold is money that will be backed by precious metals, precious stones, backed by gold. And during the time of 9/11, that currency, they had it already, everything already in effect. They were just putting the gold, they were getting the gold and everything. And America was supposed to give them the gold back so they could implement the New World Order. Remember earlier we talked about a whole bunch of different wheels, a whole bunch of different gears in motion at the same time. So they were, the Chinese dragon family, they were going to implement a New World Order, or, release this money, release this funds. And then what they call the cabal, they were going to steal the gold, which is what they did, and then cause 9/11, which is what they did, to bring order out of chaos. So either way, the objective was still the same. Now, again, the gold was supposed to be used for the new currency, which is to be backed by precious metals and precious stones. Since America has become so ingrained in the world as far as our economy, they can't just take it back and there not be repercussions to themselves also. So what they did, and they're still doing it right now, is they started brokering different deals, making deals with them, for what's to come, which we know is the New World Order. Because the people who are currently in charge, they don't want to give up their power. They don't want to give it up. So you have these two sides that are seemingly fighting against each other when they're really working for the same cause. It just one wants to be in power, the other one doesn't want to give his power up right now. And so they are working different deals in the physical, different banking deals, setting up all these different systems and everything for what's to come. It's like, hey man, you owe me X amount of dollars. Now you done made all this money with the money that I gave you, and you ain't paid me back my money. But I know that you have your hands in everything, that if I just forcefully take what's mine, because I have the power to do that, then it's going to affect me because you then took my money and then put your hands in everything. So I come to you, I'm like, you owe me, let's work a deal out. Let's work a deal that benefits the both of us. But you're going to give me what's mine. And so that's what you have in layman's terms. Now you remember when all these bankers were mysteriously ending up dead. Banker after banker after banker. You think that was by accident? You think that was a coincidence? No, some things were going on. Some people had to go. Some people had some people knew some things that they didn't really trust them with. So they had to take them out. This is the world we live in. This is why you got to have God's protection. Because Satan can put his hands on you at any time and take your life if you don't have God's protection. And that's what happened. Satan used them for the time frame that he needed to use them, and then he took them out. So you have this whole bankers mysteriously dying. I wonder why. I really wonder what they knew. I really wonder what they found out. Is it a possibility that they found out that the whole system is coming down and the whole system is a lie, and their wealth that they think that they have is going to be gone? There are many aspects of that you can look into and come to a conclusion of. So this new money that is backed by precious metals and precious stones is supposed to be, or was supposed to be, released to the public on September 11th, 2001, 9/11. And we already talked about that. I can go in deeper detail, but just to keep the story flowing, we're going to stick with the basics, because I know some of y'all, you already know all this stuff, and you probably saying, well, you forgot about this, you forgot about that. I haven't forgotten about it. I just give them little bits of detail and a little bit of detail here to paint a complete picture of what's going on. So again, this new currency was supposed to be released to the masses. Now you may be saying, currency released to the masses. Sounds good, doesn't it? All your debt is forgiven as far as the corrupt debt that they have created. Now, if you really owe somebody, then you're still going to owe them under this new system. But it sounds good, doesn't it? Oh man, we're going to get all this money and stuff and everything. You don't want to be a part of it. It's a setup. Isn't it interesting that the Bible says, for the love of money is the root of all evil? So if the love of money is the root of all evil, wouldn't it make sense that Satan, Lucifer, the devil, the dragon, the adversary, wouldn't it make sense that he would use money to entice people? Because a lot of people believe if they have money, then they have freedom, because they aren't in bondage to the different things that they are in bondage to. They believe that money will give them freedom to do what they want, to live the life they want to live. the way that they want to live it. Now, those in charge, they didn't want it released, what they call the cabal. But again, they're all on the same team. You just got different angles coming in, trying to reach the same goal. This money, as I mentioned before, will ultimately be released by Satan. It will ultimately be released by Satan. The problem isn't the money. The problem is the person that will be in charge of all this money. Now, if God was releasing all these riches and this wealth, then it would be done in righteousness. But Satan's ultimate goal is to proclaim himself as God, to be the one that has all the answers of this economic system that we are in, with all its corruptness, and the education system, and renewable energy, and all these different things. He's going to be the man to come in and have all the answers. Why? Because the dude is smart. He's not stupid, as some people like to paint Satan. Satan is wiser than we are, and maybe wiser than we will ever be. Who knows? That's up to God and how much wisdom and knowledge and understanding he wants to give us. So this is where it gets even more interesting. This money can be traced back to Francis Bacon. And some of you are familiar with him, and some of you may not be familiar with him. If you're not familiar with him, then it's a simple matter of just doing your research. Interesting guy. Now, it is Francis Bacon who envisioned America being the new Atlantis. If you go back and look at Aleister Crowley and the founding fathers and all these different people, they point back to Francis Bacon as being the one who really had the vision for what America is today. They will credit him. They will quote him. They may not talk about him a lot, but that's the man. Now, I find it interesting that you don't really hear too much about him. If you talk about America and everything, unless you have done your research into history, then you'll find out, well, who was this guy? When I first found out about him, like, Francis Bacon, like, who was this dude? Where he come from? And then you start to put the pieces together, and you see that he was the one that really had the idea of America being the new Atlantis. He set the the foundation for it. So, upon further studying, further research, you find out that Francis Bacon is also William Shakespeare. Now, there was a real William Shakespeare during that time, but the William Shakespeare that wrote the poetry and did all these different writings and stuff that is still popular today is Francis Bacon. It's the same dude. Some people will argue that fact, but the truth speaks for itself. Digging even deeper, you find out that Francis Bacon is also a mysterious man named, and some of you already know what I'm going to say, Saint Germain. This one dude is all these people. How is that possible? Now, Saint Germain, and again, you can do your deep research into these people and make the connections. Saint Germain is said to be able to turn metal, any metal, into gold. Alchemy. And many other things. The guy, he was rich, but he wasn't somebody that was like known like that. He just out the blue, and people would look at him like, "Who's this dude?" He's, living his lifestyle. He got diamonds on his shoe buckles and stuff. Like, I'm a king. I'm in a position of power, and I didn't even have that. These are actual stories. So this dude, you know what I'm saying, just somebody that's rich that don't nobody really know about. But they kings and people with power and authority are looking at him like who is he? He's decked out more than I am. Then he would come along and, he would speak this wisdom and stuff to him, and he would be in different positions around different people with power and authority, because they wanted to know how he was able to have the things that he had and how he was able to do the different things that he did. Saint Germain is also the mysterious man that was at the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Now, you may be saying, the mysterious man that was at the signing of the Declaration of Independence? Yeah, this is the stuff they don't teach you. They don't teach you this stuff in school. When they were at the Declaration of Independence for the signing of it, they were going back and forth about, what was going to be in there, what wasn't going to be in there, if they were going to sign and everything. And it was only a select group of people that were invited or that could be there. And they were in the room. They were locked in the room. But out of nowhere, they say on the balcony, if I'm not mistaken, I apologize if I get that wrong, but on the balcony appears this mysterious man. And he gives this dramatic, moving speech about why they should sign the Declaration of Independence. And his speech is said to what ultimately had them to go ahead and sign it for the sake of freedom. Now, where did Saint Germain come from out of nowhere, pushing them to sign the Declaration of Independence, which would set up what we have today: Mystery Babylon, the New Atlantis. We just covered that Saint Germain is William Shakespeare, who is Francis Bacon. Francis Bacon is William Shakespeare, who is Saint Germain. Same person. Or shall we say, same spirit. Operating in that person, pushing for the same objective and same goal over time. The craziest story never told? You decide. But it goes even deeper. Francis Bacon was right hand to King James. Again, stuff they don't teach you. Francis Bacon was told that he was going to be king. Now, I can get into the history. I will probably get into it in another video, stating and showing you how Francis Bacon even got into that position to be king, because it wasn't really by blood. But Francis Bacon was told that he was going to be king, but he was passed over for King James. He was passed over by King James, because King James, he was the rightful heir to the throne by blood. So imagine being told for a long time, you're gonna be king. Just be patient. This is yours. You're gonna be king, and then when the time comes, you're passed over. Can we say a little bit of animosity and motive? You decide for yourself. Again, King James was chosen to be king because God set him there. Because that's what God decided. And also because he was a rightful heir by blood to be the king. Now, Francis Bacon, who was also Saint Germain, he set up a trust. Saint Germain is the one who is credited as setting up the trust, setting up the world trust, I should say. Interesting, world trust. Setting up this world trust. They may be saying, well, what's the big deal about this World Trust with Saint Germain and everything? The exact same money that we mentioned before that was supposed to be released during 9/11, where do you think that money is coming from? It is coming from Saint Germain's World Trust. Now, Saint Germain set this trust up a long, long time ago. Longer than any of us realize, because this goes back to before we were even born. But that trust, that World Trust, that money was supposed to be released on 9/11. Supposedly. Again, the problem isn't the money itself. The problem is who is controlling the money. Now, I'm going to give you some things to think about. Wasn't Judas Iscariot the traitor? Wasn't he right hand to Jesus? Wasn't he Jesus' right hand man as far as taking care of the financial stuff? Wasn't Judas Iscariot in charge of the money? Now, if you recall, Judas Iscariot made a big old stink about the anointing oil or the anointment that was used on Jesus. He made a big old stink about it, saying that, oh, we could have sold that money and gave it to the poor, helped the poor. When it really wasn't about the money. It really wasn't about helping the poor. It was about the money. Are we starting to make some connections? Now, wasn't Lucifer, Satan, pretty much second in charge only to God himself? From our studying of the scriptures and everything. Then we have Judas Iscariot, who was in charge of the money and everything. Satan, Lucifer. The Word of God tells us that because of his treasures and his riches, his pride was puffed up. Because of the abundance of his treasures and the riches that he got through trading and everything. So Satan, he had wealth. Precious stones and metals and stuff. Satan has a understanding of how the monetary system works and its purpose. Wasn't Francis Bacon right hand pretty much to King James? And Francis Bacon is Saint Germain, who set up a world trust, and that money is to be released to the masses. You decide for yourself. Now, you may be saying that, man, that's a crazy story, but I don't believe it. It's garbage. That's up to you. Firstly, I would tell you to do your own research. You can simply type in Saint Germain or Saint Germain's World Trust on Google, and you will come up with different hits on that. Secondly, what are they pushing today? If I'm not mistaken, they are pushing wealth redistribution. And as I've covered before in the story, that money is supposed to be used to what? Redistribute it to the masses, to the poor, to the middle class. So we have connections going on that seemingly don't make any sense, or they shouldn't connect at all. Also, this Saint Germain fella, who shows up all throughout history under different names, you can also find them spiritually. Many people have and are, I should say is, however you want to put it, past, present, and future, they are channeling Saint Germain. And they are talking about Saint Germain's World Trust being released. Why is it that these people are channeling this spirit who is called Saint Germain, and they're talking about this? You decide for yourself. But is this the craziest story never told? Possibly. But either way, it's still a crazy story. But it's a true story. But how much truth do you really want? How much truth do you really want? Because some of the stuff I research and come across, it is heavy. Heavy. And a lot of stuff I don't really talk about because I know some people aren't really ready to handle it. But the time has come for us to grow and know these things and to understand these different things and not just write something off as lunacy, but actually take the time to do our research and ask God, do these things be true, and how they play in to the Bible. It plays in directly to the Bible. Because when that time comes for the New World Order, which is really the old world order, the beast that was, the beast that is, the beast that is to come, what do you think that Satan is going to entice the world with? Money and eternal life. Using Saint Germain's World Trust. Saint Germain, you should figure out who he is by now throughout history. Craziest story never told? You decide for yourself.